4 lessons that can make you a success and 3 lessons that people have done that destroyed them. 7 entrepreneurs, all famous, all have some success in their own way, but some made some very good choices and some made some bad decisions. For the bad ones, it's not saying that they're bad people, but they made some pretty bad mistakes because of the qualities that they had. The first person I really want to key on is going to be Henry Ford, and that is going to be the power of creating a system to create efficiency. He was obviously the founder of Ford, and he created the assembly line. A lot of times in business, you're basically running with your head cut off, trying to put out fire after fire after fire after fire. You need to take a step back and figure out what systems can I put in place to make my company more money. If you can't get efficient in what you do, then there's absolutely no way to scale. Henry Ford was able to do this. He was able to stand out from other car manufacturers simply because he was able to get things done quicker and more efficient than others. The Model T was a revolutionary car. I would highly suggest you go back and look at Henry Ford. He really revolutionized a lot of the American industry. The next person has a quality that I really would never want anybody to have in their leadership style, and that came from Steve Jobs. Now, Steve Jobs, you can get a lot of value from. He did a lot of great things, but there was a reason that he was kicked out of Apple the first time. I would have wanted to kick him out of Apple the first time too. He was a tyrant. He was a narcissist. He did not treat people properly.
I'll turn it on. Here. Okay. And you guys have to stop making me blind or I'm gonna fall off the stage here.
He was not willing to take ownership for the mistakes that he had done. It was always somebody else's fault, and using fear as a form of motivation. Apple became a success. The engineers that were developing it did it more so out of a fear that Steve was going to be pissed over the enjoyment of their job, and that leads to burnout, and that leads to quick turnover. And you saw that more and more afterwards become a certain theme. If you think Elon Musk is hard to work for, I promise you Steve Jobs was 20 times worse. This demanding style of approach will work for certain situations. A friend of mine is a chef, and essentially the entire chef industry and culture has been built around this. But this is not a management style that I would honestly recommend. But coming into an individual that you should model a quality after is going to be the McDonald's founder of Ray Kroc. Obviously revolutionized the fast food industry, turning McDonald's into this literal global brand.
I know what people like, and they happen to like hamburgers, and I can't give them everything they like, but this one thing I sure can give them.
But one thing you need to take hold of is how he did it. That is based around consistency. Henry Ford's assembly line in efficiency, now combine that by 1,000 to have consistency, which if you have thousands of locations, it's very hard to do. I personally have a very small team, and making sure that we have a very successful model for our clients is a huge thing to make sure that the margins work and that the editing times all line up. One of my biggest struggles was creating digital packages that I could replicate over and over and over again. The next quality that you do not want to have is going to come from a great example of Billy McFarland. And honestly, there's not too much positive about this character. Now, you obviously learn a lot about what not to do from Billy, as he was the brains behind the Fire Festival. And this festival was marketed as this luxury exclusive event featuring performance and top musical acts. It was such a heavy disappointment. There was tons of fraud. There was tons of scandals.
Nightmare in Paradise. There was no music.
They were put into disaster relief tents.
It was an absolute disaster. Which brings up overpromising. The quality of overpromising something is going to destroy you in the end. In the aftermath of the festival, several lawsuits were filed against the organizers and Fire Media Inc. and obviously its founder. And McFarland was obviously charged with wire fraud. It was honestly just a terrible thing. But he overpromised everything. He went ahead and overhedged his bets. You saw the exact same thing in the 2008 financial crisis, to where people just overhedged their bets. They didn't think about the bad that could happen. This is going to be an extreme, but we can bring this down to a much smaller scale. And this is honestly something that I've struggled in with the past, to where you don't mean any ill will by it, And I used to impulsively just make the date I would have the project ready by as soon as possible. I just factored in my head thinking, this is gonna be a 4-hour project, I can knock this out in no time. And I would overpromise and I would not be able to get it done because I'd have other shoots or other obligations. And I would let the people down because I said it would be done at a certain date and it wasn't. Mark Cuban. Now, this is a man that is potentially known as the luckiest man alive. It's a really cool story. Some people call it the biggest scam in history because the company that he sold to Yahoo was an ultimate failure. Most people don't actually know the full story and everything, and I would highly suggest you to look everything up. Basically, he sells his company to Yahoo. He's an instant billionaire. At the time, this is right before the dot-com bubble. So you have investors piling money into new stocks, piling money into new tech. And instead of doing that, he says, I'm gonna take my chips and go on home. I'm content with this. And the quality of don't get greedy is something I really wish more people knew about. I have a few friends that they'll trade Forex, and the biggest motto is don't get greedy, go ahead and take your profits. But it's kind of like when you're at the casino and you got a hot hand, you just think you're gonna get the next one, and then suddenly it's all gone. During the whole Dogecoin crypto thing, everything was shooting up. You had all these random coins that were going to $70,000. I got caught up with it. At one point I was up like $5,000 from like a $500 investment. Within about 3 hours, my $5,000 went to 50. It was very, very disheartening. Why risk it when you just don't have to? Now, this is someone that you all know as a great business owner, but they did have a very big flaw that I would not recommend Mark Cuban's good friend, Kevin O'Leary, who was sitting with him on Shark Tank. And he's currently in some hot water with the FTX scandal. This is a great point on to watch who you surround yourself with. Kevin O'Leary, he is a great businessman. He did not scam anybody, but he associated his name with FTX, and people trusted him, so they trusted FTX. He vouched for a specific individual and a product that ultimately a big fraudulent scandal. Again, he didn't do anything, him personally. It was just that he took his name and placed it within someone else's name. When you vouch for someone, you need to make sure they have the same qualities and that they are 100% in the right. Finally, someone that you need to follow in an attribute said this: the man who dies thus rich dies disgraced. And that man is none other than Andrew Carnegie. A little bit about Andrew Carnegie. He was a titan in American history. The amount of steel that his company produced literally built New York City. But his philanthropy is something that he's going to be remembered by. It makes him stand out more than Rockefeller and Vanderbilt and other people during that day. He was obviously a very good businessman, but what gives him light over all the other titans was that the amount that he gave away. And I don't know the specific person who said it, but someone asked, does money make you happy? And he said, yes, absolutely. If you don't think that money makes you happy, you just haven't given enough away. And that's absolutely true. So some qualities that you should take with you, and some qualities that if you have them in your life, you need to get rid of immediately. From individuals that have been through it, that have seen it all, and that have came out on top, except for